Hey, what's going on, roleplayers? It's the Bard here, and welcome back to the corner. And today I want to ask you guys a question. Is it okay to take time off of roleplaying? So this is obviously a loaded question. The answer is already built into it. What do you guys feel about it? So for me, every year, regular as clockwork, from 4 to 6 weeks, I will fall off the radar. What I find tends to happen is in real life you get swamped with just, well, real life. You spend all your time working, or you're looking after family, or you have to make time for projects or hobbies or social, and something needs to fall by the wayside. And ultimately I hate taking time out of role playing because I never stop feeling guilty for taking time off. The whole point of role playing is to be social, it's to mingle with your friends and to have fun. But sometimes I feel like I have to perform. I guess it's like the actor in me. I guess it's part of the reason why I have this channel, because I need to put across ideas, but when I do, I want to put them across in such a way that it entertains people. And if I don't feel like I'm entertaining my players, or if I don't feel like I'm putting a good character on the table, then the experience feels wasted. I try to come up with good ideas, and I try to come up with interesting scenarios, and I try to perform it, with some gusto and some passion. And then what happens is, after so much effort, you just can't effort anymore, and you just burn out. And that's something I want to talk about a bit later too. Player and GM burnout. And it's something that we've been discussing just recently, actually. A friend of mine has said, if we're not careful, we're going to burn out. And as much as I would like to deny what he's saying in the interest and in the favor of being social, he is absolutely correct. The problem we've had is having huge tables and only a few people who have been capable of running games. The knock-on effect of this, of course, is diminished quality games and poorly thought out or flat characters. So sure enough, if you're there trying to plan an adventure week after week, and you're trying to do this whilst revolving around your social life, your home life, your work life, to write a good adventure, to write a good story, it takes time. There's just no two ways about it. Sometimes you just don't have the time to do it. And in my case, as I've said before, is I just take time off. But there are other ways around it, and there are certain things that we should consider. And we'll get onto those in a little while. But first, I need you guys to understand just what happens when you burn out. So things that often happen are recycled ideas. Things that you've done before are things that, other people have done. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you find yourself repeating everything over and over and over again, the same style, the same game, the same encounters, the same adventures, players are going to get bored. And that's the first symptom. But after that, you've got other problems as well. Things like, if you see your players around you and they're clearly just not happy, they're not enjoying themselves, it could be a sign that you're burning out. It's like if the players are sat there and they're building dice towers, that's something, that's an indication that they're not in tune with the game. Always ask your players every session if they're enjoying it or not. And this is something that we need to do more. It's definitely something that has a lot of merit, and as I've said before, your friends should be honest with you. You need them to say, look, I don't like this, I didn't enjoy this aspect, this needs to be improved. If it's something you're doing, then it's going to affect everyone, whether everyone tells you or not, and you need to have that feedback. Feedback is so important. I definitely don't want to put a downer on it for you guys, but these are just the small symptoms so far. In the worst case scenarios, it can actually be quite upsetting. You feel pressured to deliver something all the time. And that can have a detrimental effect. And so you just want to get away from it, and that's completely understandable. Because if you are putting in so much effort, or you feel like you're putting in so much effort all the time, then it's going to be really, really difficult for you to keep up that level of intensity. I mean, on the flip side, if you think you've put in a lot of effort and people aren't taking it seriously, that can be just as detrimental to you as well. I mean, a great example would be horror gaming. If you're doing any horror gaming and people are laughing and joking, they're having a good time, but it's not the good time that you perceived. It can make you feel a bit deflated, and it can also be a symptom of burnout, because if you're doing something and it's making people feel one thing when you're supposed to be invoking something else, but perhaps you didn't do it right. And it can be very subtle at times, just in your delivery, just in the way that you put ideas across. Because you're burnt out, you say one thing and people infer another. Burnout can also stop you from enjoying other games. If you've just run a game and you feel like you've burnt out, when you go in and start playing a game, even if it's a different game, you just aren't into it, no matter how good it is. And that's not the fault of the GM. It's because you just can't do it anymore. And for whatever your reason is, whatever your burnout is, you've just got to accept that. So this is a pretty miserable topic, I know, and I don't want to upset people, but it is an important one that we do really need to discuss. And I think if you just get it out, and if you excuse the pun, get it on the table and start dissecting it, you'll come to the realization that yes, these things do happen, and yes, they are going to affect the way you game and the way you play and various other things. But I've never been one to shy away from the subject, and I've always offer a solution if I've got one. So there's always ways around it, and I think we should start exploring those just so that we can keep the ball rolling. So it's never really easy to sit there week after week and come up with a new story or a new adventure. I mean, this is why you should really consider running pre-published adventures, because there is this misconception that good GMs are always coming up with their own stuff. Well, no, that's not the case. If you can run a pre-published adventure, you can get just as much fun, if not more fun, out of that. You don't have to sit there and think up new stuff all the time. So you should really consider a relaxed adventure that you just need to read up on, and I'm sure your players will enjoy it just as much. As for players who get burnt out, it's a very common thing. Sometimes you just don't feel the character, or you just don't have any new input for them. So it's fine to retire that character, even if it's temporary. If you think to yourself, I'm not enjoying the character, but normally I love playing it, it could just be that you can't keep up with that intensity. I have a Desolation character, and Desolation's a hard game to roleplay in anyway. It's also a very hard game to run, because you have to keep up a consistent level of misery in it. But I have a character who is just so emotionally intense, and it is really hard to keep up that level of intensity throughout the game. And it's very common for me to really feel the burnout. So don't feel afraid to ask your DM if you can retire a character, even if it's just for a short period of time. If you want to play something else, then play something else. Any rational GM will accommodate that. There are going to be situations where it might not be possible for a week or two if you're stuck in the middle of a dungeon, but other than that, once you come out, perhaps perhaps your character is feeling the exact same things that you're feeling, and they just need some time away. The irony, I suppose, is if you consider gaming characters, we have this mental impression in our minds that they are adventuring 24/7, that literally every day of the year they're out there looking for adventure, looking for treasures and experience and that stuff. But it's not true. It's just not true. What they actually do is they have adventuring seasons, really, in the same way that in history we've had seasons of war. Because you would have your growing seasons, where you would grow crops and the like, and then you would have your harvest seasons, and that would only leave like the winter where everyone was doing nothing, and then of course you have the one time a year where you could actually go to war. And it's very much the same for adventuring. Another thing that you can do is you know, if you feel that extreme, is just take time off. And it's not something I would advocate for unless you are really committed to coming back at full steam. And that's why I do it. I take time away so that I can come back and I can then deliver in the way that I feel my players deserve, or you know, the people around me deserve a good character. They deserve someone who's, you know, full of life and full of, you know, intensity. And that's why I do take the time off, just so that I can recharge that, so that I can come up with fresh ideas, so that I can kind of wipe the slate clean and then realize, okay, this is, you know, where I think I was going wrong before. This is where I didn't have a decent enough concept to make the game that much more enjoyable, and that is why I take the time off, because it subtly creeps up on you. It's slow, and then it builds up, and then you do find that people are starting to wane off a little bit. Some of you might be thinking, oh, I'm a GM, I haven't got time to take off, I've got to run a session every week. Well, you know, some people might feel that way, but it's a great opportunity for you to say, okay guys, look, in say 4 weeks, or I'm going to take a break. Now, if you have a game that you'd like to run, then by all means, get it written up and bring it to the table. But this adventure will be put on hold, or you know, whatever excuse you have, or whatever you want to say, you know. But you know, just be honest about it. If you say, look, I'm going to take time off, you know, then everyone will support you. They're your friends after all. That's the whole point. It's a great opportunity then to get new GMs on the table, and it's something that's really worth doing. If you've got that time that you need to take off, it's a perfect opportunity for someone else to jump in and do some work. Alright guys, not the most pleasant of topics today, but something that definitely did need to be addressed. And for some reasons, you know, you just don't know why you feel the way you do, and perhaps, you know, you had no clue as to what was going on, and this has given you some insight. And if it has, it'll give you some better games in the future. If you like what I do on this channel, there is a like button down there which you can use to tell me. Alternatively, there are comments. I mean, I did ask you guys a question, how you felt about it, and I would like some interaction on this. If you think that you have burnt out, perhaps you didn't know you'd burnt out, perhaps you burn out all the time and you've got your own methods of dealing with it, I would love to hear about them. Also, if you really like what I'm doing on this channel, there's a subscribe button down in the corner. You can just click that. It doesn't require any more than minimal effort, and it doesn't cost you a thing. Anyway, that's enough of that for today. So once you guys have got fully recharged, I will see you next time at the gaming table.